Hi everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to Phil Does 3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 PM Pacific time in the United States, 10 AM in Australia and 1 AM in the UK. Hope you guys are well, you had a good weekend, a good Easter. I'm back from my cabin in the woods trip with no technology, no phones, no TV. It was nice to get away, good break. But I'm back to it all now. I'm just checking everything is working correctly. Do let me know, guys, if anything is a bit off. Just in that I've updated to Windows Creators Update and I've updated all of my software. So if anything doesn't work correctly or sounds a bit off, please let me know. Yeah, we'll see how we go. But I never trust a new update, but Windows Creative Update's sort of like mandatory now. Well, it will be very soon. So I thought I'd get a head start on any problems that may happen with that. So there was a clean reinstall of my operating system with the Creative Update and a update of all of my software. Just for you guys that use 3D Studio Max, 3D Studio Max 2018 has been released now. It was released last week, I think, the end of last week. I haven't actually had a chance to play around with it very much because I've been away over Easter for the Easter break. I will be checking it out to see if it crashes like 2017 did on my PC. We'll continue with using Max 2016 with the project we're working on now, which is an Art Deco building, interior and exterior, that we're going to be putting together in the Unreal Engine 4.15.1. So we'll see how we go, but we'll be using Max 2016 to finish that project off, because I do want to test Max 2018 off stream to make sure it doesn't crash like 2017 did. So we'll see how we go. Autodesk's forum, a few people have said it's still behaving the same way as 2017 for them, where it was crashing their machine or freezing the viewports. It was doing that for me as well on 2017, which is why I didn't use it and I stuck to 2016. 2016's been pretty stable for me as far as Max goes. Do remember, guys, though, all 3D software now is pretty capable, so just because I use 3D Studio Max does not mean that I think that's the best 3D software to use. It's what I use in my work. Bit of background on me for anyone new to my channel. I'm an architectural visualization artist at the moment. I've worked for game studios in the past and I've also worked in film and cinema. But at the moment I'm an arch viz artist. I've been a technical artist and an environment artist as well, environment artist and tech artist in the games industry, as well as the film industry. So what we're doing is we're working on our Art Deco building. I'm redoing it from a version I created back in UDK 6 years ago. We're going to be remaking that building in Unreal, the new Unreal Engine 4 from the Unreal Engine 3. Let's jump into Unreal. So what we've been doing is we've been setting up some of our assets here, one by one, bringing them into the Unreal Engine as we've been creating them. We're going to continue doing that now, and once we have all of our assets inside the Unreal Engine, we are going to be rebuilding the Art Deco building. And the Art Deco building is this one here. That's what we're going to be remaking in Unreal Engine. Again, it's the same one that you'll see on my YouTube channel, not under Phil Does 3D YouTube, but my old YouTube channel that showed the fly-through. So we're going to remake the building in Unreal, put it in an environment, make the environment animated so it all looks pretty, and then we're going to do a cinematic fly-through of the building. But what we're doing now is we're working on these assets, and what I've done is laid all my assets out in a row for the interior of the building, and that way I can see what I need to bring into the Unreal Engine, and I won't forget anything. As we've worked on an asset and finished it and brought it into Unreal, we're moving it to the background here. So the ones in the background we've done, the ones in the foreground we still have to do. Now it's a bit difficult to see, there we go. So a lot of them won't take too long. Many of them are floor pieces that I do want to just retexture slightly. I'll probably end up using Mari by the Foundry to do the retexturing. I'm also using Substance Painter to do the retexturing on a few of these objects as well. Let's just zoom in here to these railing sections. So you guys have seen me do the central railing section here, which is the one that we've already brought into Unreal. this one here. We're going to be, I think, working on the other railing sections to match this piece today, so we can get them all out of the way and done. And having said that, let's look at these pieces here on the end. And again, these sections are like modular. They've been created specifically so that we can instance them in Unreal. That'll save us on polygon count and texture memory, and we can reuse them around the level. So yeah, if they look a little odd, it's because they're created in such a way that we can instance them and move them and reuse them basically. But what we're doing is I'm retexturing some of these assets because I don't like the textures I've used on some. Like you can see here that the colors don't match here. The posts don't match the side pieces. So we're going to be retexturing it. We've already done the texture work when we created the other central square railing section, so we can reuse those textures. So let's, apart from these railings, we may probably have to retexture those up in Substance Painter, I think. So we will be doing that. Again, guys, if I seem a bit distracted, it's just because I'm keeping an eye on OBS and everything else going on to make sure that Windows is behaving properly. Because I don't keep my stream open in the background. Hey, Sniper Echo, how are you? Again, do guys let me know if anything sounds off, because like I say, I've updated to the creative update of Windows and it was a fresh reinstall of my operating system, so I just want to make sure that everything is fine for you guys and you can hear me and all that sort of thing. I did test the stream locally by doing local recordings to make sure everything sounded correct, but you never know with Windows and a major operating system update. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to, I think we'll try to finish these two side sections off with these banister sections to match the one that we created here in the middle. And then we can concentrate on some of the other larger pieces of geometry, such as the floors, and we may start to tackle the building, I think, too, at some stage this week or next week. So as far as the operating system goes, I do like the creators update. It seems to be behaving well as far as Windows operating systems go. I took the opportunity, like I said, to update to Max 2018, but I'm not going to be using it until I test it to see if it's going to crash my machine more. I only got back from my Easter break late last night, so I really haven't had a chance to play around with that very much. So we'll stick to 2016 for now, because I know that 2016 is pretty stable. Let's have a look at this piece of geometry here. Let's go into isolation mode so we can concentrate on that one piece of geometry. And there's a few things I want to do here. Like, you remember I updated these metal banister pieces to make them a little higher poly, just add a bit more depth and detail, because this is just a flat plane. And we remade that to add a bit more interest. So we're going to, I think, start by replacing these pieces with the updated pieces. I don't want to remake them again. I'll just take one from the one we've already done. Let's jump into our Modify tab. What are you doing here? I haven't set my modifiers up either because I reinstalled Max 2016. There we go. Just needed a bit of a refresh there. Let's select these banister pieces here. Just trying to work out what is going on here. Oh, I see. I was wondering why I couldn't select these pieces with these pieces. It's because what I've done here is I've made this up into three separate sections, I should say. So we have the two side sections and then we have the front section. Now, again, this is a good example of maybe making things much more modular, and I may actually try to recall if I should leave it like that or take this in as one piece of geometry. I think we may take it in as one piece. I do want to make some adjustments here though. Yeah, I just want to move some of these square columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate those first. I'm just going to do that with a detach, if I can find it. There we go. I don't want to clone it or anything. I want to completely detach it. I'm going to do the same on this side over here. So we're just going to select that square column in the corner and detach them. We're getting back to my modular thing. I got lost there for a minute, my train of thought. You could leave these as two separate pieces and instance that if you really wanted to save on poly counts. I don't think I'll do that. I think I'll bring this in as one piece. I have a feeling this piece of geometry is only used once anyway. We'll see how we go. If we find once we start rebuilding the building, it will be better for us to separate them. We can come back into Max and do it then. But for the moment, we will leave it the way it is. I'm just wondering why Max is doing that to me. It's saving in the background, and that's not what I want it to do. Now, it could be something to do with the Windows Creators Update, but I'm just going to jump quickly into my preferences here and make sure that auto backup and all that sort of stuff is turned off. Auto backup is turned on. I did turn that off, but it didn't seem to stick. I'm just going to redo that and check it again. You guys know I hate having my workflow interrupted like that. Like you saw, Max was the cursor was in the spinning state, indicating Max was doing something in the background, and that stops me from working. And that's usually this auto backup in software, and I always generally turn that off on any software that I use, whether that's Vue, Max, anything like that, just because I don't like having my workflow interrupted. So I'm going to make sure that that's turned off as well. But you do have to make sure if you do that you regularly save your file. Otherwise, if it crashes, you're not going to be able to go back to where you were. So if you're one of those people that forgets to regularly save, don't turn it off. If you're a person that can remember to save regularly, then I recommend turning it off because it does interrupt your workflow. Okay. Now, before we do anything else, let's get these columns positioned correctly. I'm going to jump into my top viewport here. Actually, I want to see it in my top viewport, but I'll do some movements here in my side viewport. These bounding boxes, I do want to remove those as well, but at the moment, because this is a new install of Max, I've got to go into my settings to do all of that. So we'll live with it for now, and I'll look at those settings later on, I think. I do want to go into my hierarchy tab and affect my pivot and center it to the object. That'll just make it easier for me to move. I'm just trying to work out how I want to tackle this piece here. Basically what I want to do is I'm moving the column in so that the railings themselves don't jump through the front of the column like that. That's incorrect. So you don't want them to look like that. You want them to look like that, because a column, a railing will never run in front of a column like that. They'll always run into the column. Let's do the same with this one over here. Again, I'm going to affect my pivot and center it to the object. And we're just going to move it forward. Well, just like that. And that's better. Much more realistic now. We may just move this one out a little as well on the side. Let's check the other one to make sure it's correct as well. That one looks okay. Yep. Alright, let's get rid of these old railings now and replace them with the newer sections. So again, I'm going to go into my modified tab into sub-object mode and select those. I'm going to detach them before I delete them because I want to make sure I place the new ones in the same spot. So we'll detach, and we're going to call this one old rail 1. Let's do the same with this one on this side. Back into sub-object mode, select those old railings. I'm holding down the control key while I do this to multi-select. Detach, and we'll call this one old rail 2. Okay, let's select the one at the front. Back into sub-object and select these old railings again. We'll detach them and call them old rail 3. Okay. Alright, now let's go out of isolation mode so we can find that I went into isolation mode. I don't want to do that. End isolation mode. Let's jump back to this piece here that we worked on with the railings already. And again, the difference in the railings, they may look very similar, and they are, but we've just added a bit more three-dimensionality to the actual geometry of the mesh itself. So maybe if I go into edge faces, you can see it a little better. Yeah, we've actually just added a bit more depth to the actual railings. Instead of it just being a texture on a flat surface baking the 3D, we've actually put 3D into the object. So all we want to do here is, again, I'm going to go into sub-object and select one of those railing pieces. We must make sure we select all the right pieces here though. Make sure we grab the ones on the back as well. And not forget the ones at the very top. Okay. So let's now detach this, but we're going to detach it as a clone. And we're going to call it new rail. P for piece. So detach as clone. Okay, we can go out of sub-object mode. Now we can get Max to select that object we just cloned. Come on, Max. There we go. And again, if I'm a bit distracted, guys, it's just because I'm keeping an eye on everything like OBS going on in the background. I want to make sure that I'm not having any problems at the moment with the new Windows build. I'm just going to move that copy we just made over to this new rail section that we're working on. Don't do that. Max can be very fiddly sometimes with his viewport. Alright. Let's select these other pieces and go back into isolation mode so that we're not distracted by everything else. Okay. Now, we'll stick with doing the railings. I do want to change the textures on these. We'll do that in just a minute. Let's grab these railing pieces though and look at those. Let's get it positioned correctly. So again, we're going to have to go into hierarchy mode and make sure our pivot is centered to the object. You notice here too that this railing section is a little higher than the one in the middle of the room. The railings are run along the side stairs, and this is a back section of the inside the upper, on the upper floor there's like a balcony section at the back, and this sits there. And these railing sections are a little bit taller than the ones in the interior. I'm just trying to work out why I did that. Because again, this was, remember guys, I made these assets 6 years ago, so it's hard for me to remember back that far as to why I would have done that. And I can't think of a good reason why that would be. They should really all be identical. When you're making railings for a building, you don't generally make them higher in one spot than another without a good reason, and I can't think of a good reason why these railings would be higher than the others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick to the size we've already got so it matches the one we've already made in that square section that goes in above the central stairwell. And we will alter this model piece to match that. So I'm going to pull this down and make sure it's lined up correctly in all of my viewports here. Okay, we want this one at the front. Yeah, I really can't think of a reason why I would have made this railing higher, so we're going to alter it to make it the same height. Just going to make sure that's positioned correctly here. Back into our front viewport. I'm going to hold down the shift key now and shift drag a copy. Make sure it's a copy and not an instance. One more over here. I could multi-select here and shift drag that way as well. I'll just keep going the way I am though. It won't take too long. There aren't too many pieces. If this was a really long section, then shift dragging, shift copying a few pieces would get the job done more quickly. And that one. All right. Let's select the old railing sections here. And I'm going to delete them. Before I move my top railing sections to match, I'm going to continue doing the replacements for the others here on the side. Just want to make sure that they're actually into the wooden bottom, and they are. That should be okay. I want to make sure they're not floating above that wooden base piece there. Right, they look fine. My front viewport would probably show me that more easily, and I can see that they're not, so that's fine. Okay, let's grab one of those pieces and make another copy. Shift drag a copy. And we're going to rotate it with angle snap turned on, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. Again, I'm just going to position it here. And again, for anyone wondering why I do this, where I go down to hit these buttons as I work, that's more for you guys while I stream so that you can see what I'm doing when I'm doing it. I suggest you set up a short key or a macro key to do these instead of having to move your mouse all around the screen, which is the way I normally work when I'm not streaming. But I found that myself, if I'm watching somebody work, if they use macros, it's very hard then for people to follow along as to what's going on. So I prefer to actually move my mouse around so you guys can see what buttons I'm hitting when I'm hitting them, as opposed to me hitting a macro key and you not knowing what I'm doing. Going to rotate this slide. I'm going to turn angle snap off. I just want to rotate this piece a little bit. Okay, I'm going to shift drag a copy over. And we're going to select the old ones and delete them. And now I'm going to multi-select and shift drag a copy of these over to the other side. I'll do that in my top viewport. It's probably the easiest for you to see what's going on. Up here. Also make sure a copy, not an instance. Let's move them in. And delete the old ones. Let's move these railing sections now, I think. So what I'm going to do is select the asset and the object. We'll detach the top railing. Not as a clone, we'll just attach it. Hey Rage, how's things? Good to see you. I hope you guys had a good Easter. I hope as I was saying, I hope you guys had a good break, a good Easter. I got back from my no technology break in the woods, and it was good to get away from phones and computers and TVs and everything for a week. We're just attaching these railing sections here so that we can move them down. Okay. Easter was good? Yeah, no, my Easter was good. Yeah, like I said, I wanted to get away. I went to a cabin in the woods, up in the mountains, over the Easter break because I wanted to... I've been working 7 days a week for like the past 6 weeks prior to Easter. Just because deadlines with the studio and things like that, I had no choice, and that's fine. I mean, that's part of the job, and I love what I do, so that's cool. But it was nice to get away from all technology for a week. So yeah, like I said, no mobile phone, no computer, no PC, or television or anything like that. No technology at all. There was power at the cabin, but there was no technology, and it was very nice to get out into the woods and explore nature a little bit, because I like hiking and that type of thing, camping out. I wasn't camping out this time, but I do enjoy going hiking and that type of thing, so I had a good time. And I didn't stuff myself full of chocolate over Easter either, so that was good, as much as I love chocolate. But I hope you guys had a good Easter as well, whether you spend it with your family or whatever you guys were doing. Yeah, Rage is saying definitely needed a break, yeah. Like I said, I don't mind. Working 7 days is part of the course sometimes when you work for a studio and they've got a deadline. It's always better if you don't have to, but occasionally you do. And that's, like I said, fine, because I enjoy what I do, so that's not a problem. So long as it's not 365 days a year, then that's fine. And generally it's not, so. And that was the other reason, just for you guys that know me a little bit more, why I left the games industry was because I didn't like those hours. I loved making games, I love playing games, I still do. But the hours, I found the crunch time was really bad. And that's just the nature of the games industry, that's the way it is. And like I said, I don't mind crunch so long as it's not a yearly crunch where they expect it every day, for the whole year type thing. Whereas the studio I'm with now, which is ArchViz, we don't, while we still have crunches, we don't have a whole yearly crunch, so it suits me better. I'm not trying to talk you guys out of wanting to work for game studios, because I know you guys love games on Twitch and That's cool. I love them too. Yeah. Rage is saying it can be a grind and guys get burnt out. They do. And I was starting to feel a bit burnt out. So a short break like that away from all technology can really help to revitalize you as well as a designer, as an artist or a designer. If you're finding you're starting to get a bit burnt out, just take time away from it completely. Not a long period of time. Like I said, a week was enough for me. I'm feeling revitalized now. Nice and chilled and relaxed and happy to go again. But it can be a problem in the industry, that's for sure. You end up getting burnt out, which is a shame. But again, if you do get burnt out, guys, if you're ever feeling it's a bit overwhelming, you just take that short break and you'll come back refreshed and you can, keep going. Just when you push yourself constantly, like sometimes you have to, in working for a game studio because they have deadlines and the crunch is pretty severe. You don't have the opportunity to take that break so much. But like I said, I'm not trying to talk you guys out of working in a game studio because I know you love games and I love games and I love working for the studio. It's just the hours were too much for me. So yeah, I'm not saying I never will work for another game. I still do contract work for a game studio now. So it's not like I'm completely out of games myself. But the contract work I do on my time. But, and I set the time period. I'm not being told by the project manager when it has to be ready, type thing. So it suits me better. But having said that, I'm not saying I'll never go and work for another game studio again. I probably may. We'll see. But I'm quite happy doing Archviz at the moment. And again, that's an alternative too for you guys. I know I had a few guys a couple of months ago pop into chat say, I live in a country where there aren't any game studios for me to work for, or there aren't that many 3D Archviz studios that I can do work for. Do remember, guys, you can always do contract work. You don't have to go and work for a studio. It's a lot more, it's different type of work. You've got to manage yourself a bit better. But doing contract work, you can work for a studio anywhere in the world. As long as they're happy to contract you to do work for them, then yeah, that's a way to get around any restriction geographically that you may have in the world if you're not near a studio that you can actually go and work for physically. Remember, the internet's a worldwide thing, so you can do work for anyone in the world. Do make sure they don't take advantage of you, though. I never like seeing a company take advantage of their staff. And some will. Well, some will try anyway. The good ones won't, but the bad ones will. And there's always a bad egg in every bunch, so just be careful. Particularly if you're doing contract work, because you don't want to be doing hours of work for someone and then have them not pay you. So, yeah, do be careful. But it is a viable alternative if you don't live near a studio that you can work for and you do want to do 3D for a living. All right, so we've copied over our new railing pieces here. We've moved our columns forward. I do want to change the texture on these columns because that does not match at all. Let's open up our material editor here. Okay. Now, I've just got to try and remember which one's which. Rage is saying I should do a more in-depth video on the industry, maybe on YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel. All of my Twitch streams that I do here, I upload to YouTube each week. There's also on Twitch. You can watch my past broadcasts on Twitch. Rage is saying he's new to it all, so he's definitely interested. If you guys would be interested in a YouTube video on more in-depth look at the industry, let me know. You can either email me at phil@phildoes3d.com or you can message me on Twitter at phildoes3d. I'll look into doing it if you guys would find that interesting. Like I said, I've been working in 3D for more than 10 years, and I've worked for a range of studios. So maybe if you guys are interested and you have questions or something, you can email me or message me on Twitter, and I can go through that on a video on YouTube. I've just got, and I'm quite happy to do that if that's what interests you guys. I'm just not sure what type of things you'd be interested in hearing about in the industry. And I do have to be careful too, because I don't want to say anything that... remember, when a lot of the work I've done for the industry in the past, like the actual physical modelling of what work I've done, is under NDA. I can't actually really talk about it much, which is why these projects I show you on Twitch are my personal projects. I can't really show you anything I do for the studio because the clients wouldn't like it. They don't want their stuff being broadcast to the world, which is fair enough. So anything you see me doing on Twitch is my personal work, simply because I can't, I'm under NDAs and that type of thing, and I can't show you stuff I do for the studio. Bear that in mind too, guys. If you do want to start streaming on Twitch, and it's a fun thing to do, I encourage you to stream on Twitch. But if you do work for a studio, do bear in mind that they don't want you usually to show what you do at the studio. I know a couple of people on Twitch have gotten into trouble with their work for streaming stuff that they do at work, so don't do that. Work on your own stuff on Twitch. But I do know a lot of guys that, like I said, are interested in the games industry particularly, and a lot of people don't really know what working for a game studio involves and entails and what it really is. They think you just would play with games all day long, and that's not what you do. I mean, I know a lot more of you clued in guys know that that's not true. You don't just play games all day. You work. You do play games, like you've got to game test the levels and stuff you work on, but yeah, most of the time you're not playing games. And the hours can be very long. I'm just trying to work out what that texture is. I think what I may do is I'll use my picker here to find the texture it's using at the moment. It's this one here. It is actually using 2 textures. It's actually using more than 2 because it was a multi-material object, but we've broken it up. So I think what we'll do... Rage is saying, yeah, I feel we get a lot of tutorials, but not really a way to approach your start into the field. Right now, you're just trying to build up your portfolio for contract work. Okay, yeah, no, that's very true as well. I mean, there are articles online from producers in the industry where they go through what type of things they like to see in your portfolio. I admit, though, there probably aren't enough. They sort of like, they don't go into a huge amount of detail, and they probably do that on purpose because they don't want to put people off by saying, I want to see this and I want to see this. They say, they make it more general so that to cater to everybody's different type of skill level. But it can be difficult if you haven't worked in the industry to know what type of things you should put in your portfolio, what sort of things you shouldn't, and how many of what and that type of thing as well. And how to approach a game studio and that type of thing, yeah, that can be difficult too. And again, it depends on where you live. If you live in a place like the United States where they generally have a lot of different game studios you can approach, it's less difficult. But I had one guy from Turkey a few months ago who was saying he wants to get into the industry, but there are no game studios where he works, and that can be more difficult. Now remember, you can get a games company to sponsor you to work for them. They generally prefer not to. If they can find people locally that they don't have to sponsor, they'll go that route first. So you've generally got to be pretty good at what you do to get them to sponsor you to actually go and work for them. Not saying it's impossible, but you do have to be good at what you do. Or they've got to be in an area where they can't get staff. But you can still do your contract work from wherever it is you live in the world. So you don't have to be living in a country like the United States to actually do work for a game studio in the United States. You get them to contract. You get contract work from them. And I see a lot of, just talking about the whole portfolio thing very quickly here. I'm not going to go into depth on it, but remember guys, less is always more. Don't try and pad your portfolio full of a lot of different things because you think it's going to be more impressive to these guys looking at your work at the game studio or the ArchViz studio or the film studio or whatever studio. They don't want to see more work. They want to see good work. So they're more impressed by fewer pieces of good work as opposed to a lot of very ordinary work. So my advice as far as your portfolio goes would be stick to fewer pieces of your best work and try and add a bit of variety as well. Don't say send them all guns or send them all vampires or you know what I mean, or send them all cars. Don't limit your portfolio that way either, or try not to.